Hello everyone, I am Srishti from Team Decipher with another chapter of Economic Survey, that is Structural Changes in India's Labour Markets. Let's start with the bit of introduction. See, India is midway through its demographic dividend, a period of time when demography gives economic growth a boost by expanding working age share of the population. To exploit this dividend and meet the growing aspirations of those entering the labor force, India's economy needs to create enough good jobs, jobs that are safe and pay well, and encourage firms and workers to improve skills and productivity. Statistics shows that between 1989 and 2010, informal firms account for most employment growth and nearly all the increase in the number of establishments since 1989. Of the 10.5 million new manufacturing jobs created between 1989 and 2010, only 3.7 million, about 35% jobs were in formal sector, and rest 65% were in informal sector. The informal sector should thus be created with creating jobs and keeping unemployment low. Yet, by most of measures, informal sector jobs are much worse than formal sector ones. For example, wages are on average more than 20 times higher in the formal sector, though informal sector wages have grown somewhat faster between 1989 and 2010. Formal sector jobs also score better on some non-pecuniary grounds. For example, they allow workers to build employment history, which is important for gaining access to cheaper formal credit. So, the challenge of creating good jobs in India could be seen as the challenge of creating more formal sector jobs, which also guarantees worker a protection. Statistics in Economic Survey shows that a large portion, that is about 50% of good jobs in the formal sector, excluding government-owned firms, are in manufacturing sector. But in a recent survey, medium-sized formal sector manufacturing firms reported labor regulations to be a significant barrier to growth, and specifically dismissal norms under the Industrial Disputes Act and the cumbersome nature of compliance with labor regulations in general. So let's know contract labor and these regulatory cholesterols. The slow pace of labor reform has encouraged the firms to resort to their strategies to negotiate regulatory cholesterols. One popular strategy is to hire contract workers, which has two key benefits. The first is the firm essentially subcontracts the work of following regulations and managing inspectors to the contract labor firm. And second, because contract workers are the employees of the contractor and are not considered workmen in the firm stays small enough to be exempt from some labor laws. The easing of constraints on larger firms has led researchers to estimate that contract labor has boosted manufacturing GDP annually by 0.5% between 1998 to 1999 and 2011 to 2012. Yet, when asked, many large firms say contract labor is not the ideal solution actually, and that they would prefer to hire regular workers if dismissal laws were different. Hiring workers through a contract can be more expensive, at least 14% more expensive according to the Indian Cellular Association. Furthermore, contract workers do not feel as much loyalty to the company as regular workers, and would reducing employers' incentive to invest in their training. Indeed, there is evidence that hiring contract workers today hurts a firm's productivity tomorrow. precisely because contract workers do not accumulate firm-specific human capital. Now, let me tell you that apparel is an industry in India which should be performing well. It is labor intensive with 30% of costs from wages. Only 2-3% of costs are due to capital intensive inputs like power. And yet India is ceding market share in the global apparel industry to countries like Bangladesh and Vietnam. So let's see how India's productivity in apparel be improved. The productivity could substantially be improved by reallocating capital from less productive to more productive firms. Formal sector apparel firms are about 15 times more productive than informal sector. But statistics shows that India's apparel sector is dominated by informal firms only. Spatial mismatch between firms and workers might explain why formal sector apparel firms might find it difficult to expand. Living costs are high in cities, rendering cost sensitive, labor intensive manufacturing is uncompetitive. High transport costs and weak connectivity between metros and suburban areas preclude the possibility of living outside the city and commuting to work. Some formal sector apparel manufacturers are relocating in second and third tier towns and cities. This business model of moving factories to workers has a number of commercial and social advantages. It involves spreading economic development to underdeveloped areas, reduces spatial mismatch in labor markets, and can improve competitiveness by raising firms' access to lower cost labor. Please be apprised that the apparel industry typically employs many female workers. For instance, about 70% of the employees of India's largest apparel exporter are women. Therefore, apparel manufacturers locating in rural areas can help address the low rates of female labor force participation that prevent India from achieving its full economic potential. It is a striking fact that the areas in India that have seen the greatest decline in female labor force participation in the last decade are those villages that have rapidly urbanized and are now part of towns and small cities. Farming jobs in these areas are no longer available, but women-friendly service sector jobs are yet to take their place. From their perspective, female LFP can be expected to depend on the availability of suitable jobs. The relocation model addresses these concerns by offering precisely the kind of suitable jobs located in small cities, utilizing women's competitive and comparative advantage in garments, flexible working hours and childcare on site that women in rapidly urbanizing areas are looking for but often do not have. Thus, the relocation model could be termed as win-win-win situation. Commercially advantageous for the manufacturer, bringing women into the labor market and boosting growth. So recent studies have estimated that India's GDP would grow by an additional 1.4% every year if women were to participate as much as men in the economy. Now let's see the center's role in creating good jobs, ensuring work-centric labor regulation. One key role is to ensure that labor regulation is worker-centric by expanding workers' choice and reducing mandatory taxes on formal sector employment. How should one think of mandated worker benefits like EPF? Of course, higher earners may still voluntarily contribute from their own take-home salaries to say the EPF, but lower earners have no such choice. To better understand what these involuntary contributions are, really taxes, we consider the case of EPF in more depth. The EPF, which was created by the Employees Provident Funds and Miscellaneous Provisions Act 1952, is a fund to which most workers must involuntarily contribute at least 12% of their basic salary. The money goes into the account managed by Employees Provident Fund Organization (EPFO) and is meant to provide a lump sum benefit to workers upon the retirement. Employers must also contribute 12% of their employees' basic, although about 70% of employees' contribution goes into pension schemes (EPS), while about 30% goes into the EPF. In a survey conducted via phone with associates of one of India's largest contract labor companies, workers were asked whether, if given the choice, they would prefer to continue contributing part of their salary into their EPF account or receive the same amount in cash instead. And can you believe that the result, about 70% of respondents said they would prefer to receive it cash. This 30% approval rating could signify that a large portion of workers are liquidity constrained, or it could suggest that the functioning of EPF can further be improved. So let's know what is the conclusion out of it. India's most pressing labor market challenge going forward will be to generate a large number of good formal sector jobs. These jobs tend to be formal sector only. Two obstacles to formal sector job creation are regulation-induced taxes on formal workers and spatial mismatch between workers and jobs. Encouragingly, firms and workers are finding solutions to deal with these obstacles and are even more varied than obstacles themselves, as we have been describing in this chapter again and again. Meeting the challenges ahead will require more of such ingenuity, and the private sector, state governments and the center will have important roles to play. So we have discussed about the labor economy of the country. Now we will be discussing some more economic surveys in the next chapters, in the next sessions. Till then, thank you for watching. Please do comment in the comment box, subscribe us, like us and share us on the Facebook. For many more things, please visit our website decipheris.com, and for any query related to subjects or any suggestions, you may also write to us. Till my next session, take care, bye-bye.